Welcome everyone to CVI Now's live virtual event. Today we'll explore all that comes with raising a child with disabilities in a society that is not fully inclusive or accessible. So we're going to dig deep today. If you're with us on our CVI Now parent group, drop a hello in the comments and feel free to post questions as they come to you. I am Rachel Bennett, the Assistant Director for CVI Now and Parent Advocacy and Support here at the CVI Center at Perkins, and I'm a CVI mom to Henry, who's 9. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with the wonderful Amanda Griffith-Atkins. Amanda is a licensed marriage and family therapist whose clinical background, combined with her own experience as a mother of a disabled child, has given her a unique and refreshing perspective on parenting. She is the founder of Amanda Atkins Counseling Group in the Lincoln Neighborhood Square in Chicago. Many of you follow her incredible Instagram account that is full on truth about all that we experience as disability parents. Our format today will be a conversation, and I'll be asking Amanda your questions that you submitted earlier. We'll talk for about 40 minutes or so, and then we look forward to answering the questions that you post in the comments. All right, we got people joining us. Here we go. All right, Amanda, share a little bit about you.
All right, well, thanks for that introduction. I'm so happy to be here. This is kind of my passion, is connecting to other parents who get it, who are also raising kids with disabilities. And just as I was reading your questions, I was just so struck by the weight on our shoulders as parents and just the amount of emotion that we experience on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm just so excited to jump into this with you. Like Rachel said, I am a mom to a child with a disability. I have an almost 13-year-old with Prader-Willi syndrome, which is a rare genetic syndrome that impacts about 1 in 20,000 people. And so it's pretty rare. And I've just sort of had my own journey with it. And I feel like for a long time, I wasn't really even able to talk about it. I didn't really have it fully integrated into my identity. And it took a long time for me to be able to confidently say, I'm a parent to a child with a disability. But since I've started talking about it, it's been really important for me to kind of speak my truth about it, which for me is allowing space for the good and the bad, right? Like I think so often as parents of kids with disabilities, we feel like we have to be that like, full advocate parent where we always have a smile on our face. And we've all heard the sayings, right? God only gives special kids to special parents, or, like all these things that we feel like we're supposed to be. And I've just sort of been like, you know what? I want to sort of like crush all of those things and be like, some days are really freaking hard and I can't do it. And I feel like the more we talk about this, the more that like within our community of other parents that we're being honest and vulnerable about the hard stuff, then really in some ways, the easier it gets and the more encouraged and supported that we feel. So this has sort of become like a bit of a life mission for me, is to just allow space for the hard stuff and like the really upsetting truths that some of us didn't ask to be in this position. And we love our kids with all of our heart, but it's also totally changed our lives in ways that we could have never predicted. So I also have 2 other kids, 2 other boys. I'm a total boy mom. I have 3 boys. So it's always an adventure around here. So, and then also I run a group practice as well. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. There's 11 of us at my practice, and I have like the most amazing team ever of therapists. And we're in Chicago, and I specialize in couples and families, and I do lots of grief work. And then also, I don't take on a ton of clients with disability parenting because it's my life. So, I work on it in this setting, in more of a public setting, but in terms of clients, I don't take on a whole lot of them just because I'm kind of in the trenches right there with us. So yeah, that's my story, and I'm really happy to be here.
Wow. I'm already like, yes, all the things. Okay. So what is the hardest thing you are working through right now as a disability parent?
The hardest thing I'm working through, honestly, is my son. Part of his syndrome is there's a lot of behavioral stuff with it. And I feel like I am really, really struggling with that fine line of like what is discipline accomplishing? Like realistically, what can I expect out of discipline, and what's the correct way to do it? Right. Getting like letters from the school, like, okay, Asher today really struggled with da 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 da. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm really struggling with like, what is realistic? Like, I want to have high expectations, but also I need to be realistic that this is a child that has a syndrome that really impacts his behavior. And I also don't want him living his whole life feeling like he's getting yelled at all the time. So,
Right.
I try to remember, like, he's a kid, this is his life. Like,
Right.
is it real? Do I really need to be like yelling at him about this thing? Or can I just find a different way to approach it? So I'm like in the trenches with discipline.
So hard.
Also, the fact that I have 2 non-disabled kids and knowing, like, what am I modeling to them? It's just so complicated. So if anyone has the answer to that today, please chime in and let me know. So discipline is what I'm struggling with right now.
Like, so same. I mean, so many of us in the CVI community have a lot of, our kids, behavior is communication. You know this about Asher,
Yes.
and if it's not the right environment, if it's not the right task, they're going to tell us in any way possible.
Totally.
But we how do we get joy out of them?
I know.
And not discipline the whole time. Yes.
And they don't want to be disciplined the whole time too. Like, he's like, are you kidding me? This sucks. I mean, he's not saying that, but I'm sure he's thinking it, like. And
he's almost 13, right? He's almost a 13-year-old boy. I mean, there's that. I have an almost 9-year-old boy. I mean, I don't know where's the typical, where's the, I don't know. I don't know.
Yes. And the world has expectations on our kids too, that sometimes, like, I'm like, if he's having a bad day, we're not going to be able to discipline him into good behavior. That's just the reality with him. And I know that much. So,
that's hard.
Yes. So that's where I am.
That for you. Oh my goodness. Ooh, we got some more folks coming on. Welcome, welcome. Okay. So a lot of questions around mental health of our kids and their self-advocacy. We have some adults with CVI in the group, which has been amazing. And so some of these questions come from them as well. But so how do we support our kids' mental health, for our older kids and adults with CVI? What are ways and skills to help them cope with emotions from having CVI? Big question.
I love this. Yeah, I love this question. And I think it's such a great question, especially for kids that are starting to be in the slightly older age, or maybe adolescents and above, because there is so much complexity with it. And I think one thing that you're going to hear me say a lot today is that, like, the best way to do anything, fill in the blank, for your kid is to model it for yourself. So you're going to hear me say that a lot today, meaning,
I'm writing this down.
If you want your kid to have good mental health and healthy relationships with their emotions, you have to model that yourself with your own self-care and your own mental health. And B, you have to have an environment in your home that fosters it. So one thing to keep in mind, this is something that I always say, there's no such thing as a bad emotion, right? Let's say your child comes home from school today and is feeling really super mad. So, and our question is, how can we foster healthy mental health for our kids? So the first thing you're going to say is, oh my gosh, I can tell you're mad. What happened today? Like, we're not dismissing the emotion. We're not trying to get them to numb. We're not saying, go watch TV. You're going to feel better. Have a snack. You'll feel better. We're going to say, oh my gosh, you're so mad. I can tell by your face what's going on. Like, what happened today, right? And we're giving them space to process it. That's first and foremost. So we're allowing space for their emotions. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. And then also, likewise, flip, you're feeling mad. So then how are you modeling feeling mad to your kid, right? Am I like going in the pantry and eating Cheez-Its, and shutting the door and being like, oh, I'm so mad, I don't want to see you guys, maybe some days? Or am I saying, mom is really mad right now. I've just had something come up and I just need a minute to catch my breath. So just, if you guys can just go in there, let me calm down. I'm mad. I'm not feeling very good right now, right? So that's modeling, and our kids pick up on the ways. And there's also all these implicit messages about what emotions are okay and what emotions are not okay. For many of us, maybe we grew up in a household where sadness wasn't allowed, right? And so nobody talked about sadness. If something bad happened, there wasn't feelings of like, are you feeling sad? It was just hush hush. We don't talk about sadness, right? That's sort of like an old fashioned view on sadness that I probably many of us can relate to. And so from that, we learned implicitly, nobody ever said sadness is a bad emotion. Nobody ever told us that, but we learned implicitly due to our parents' behavior. So remember, our kids are watching us. So first and foremost, manage your emotions. And second of all, I would say, give them space to freely express and feel their emotions in the home. And then another thing that I was thinking along with this question is making sure that we're exposing our kids to disabled advocates, right? So giving them role models who look like them, giving them role models who really know what it is that they're feeling, so that so it's not just us trying to navigate their mental health, but that there's other people that we trust involved too. So whether that's disability advocates, whether it's a therapist, whether it's teachers that we trust, knowing that we're not just doing this by ourselves, but there's lots of different people that are modeling healthy mental health to our kids. And then the last thing I'm going to say on this is don't be afraid to ask questions. So, you know, if, again, that fosters that environment of open communication about emotions, that shows that like, you're allowed to feel angry here, you're allowed to feel sad here. You know, and saying something like, I noticed that you were really quiet when you came home from school today. Is there anything that you want to talk about? Did something happen? Or, you know, and just giving them space. And if they say, no, everything's fine, you could say, okay, well, I feel like something's off. So if it is, definitely let me know. But if not, that's okay too, you know? So just really the best thing to do is just make emotions and mental health part of your daily life. Like, don't make it off in the same way that if your child came home coughing, you would take them to the doctor.
Right.
If your child comes home and they're crying every day, take them to a therapist, right? Like,
yeah,
you have to do this alone.
And can I ask a few follow-ups to that?
Yeah, please.
For many kids with CVI, fatigue is really real. Visual fatigue sets in. And so I know I had this with Henry a lot. This is a big discussion on our group. You know, when they come home from school or at the end of the day, it's just, they're so tired. And being able to kind of model or reason anything at that point is tough. It's like, how do we, so sometimes the fatigue is like outward behaviors. Sometimes it's like, migraine, it's something else. It's like, how do we navigate those really tough moments when they're just not totally connected to their emotions?
Yeah, I would almost name that. And I'd be curious if anybody has any thoughts on that, you know, have maybe found something successful, please. But again, my child doesn't have CVI, so I can't speak personally, but my thought is, even just naming that, like, oh my gosh, Henry, I know you're exhausted when you come home from school. I want you to rest and take care of yourself, but maybe tomorrow when you wake up, can we try and start the day talking about this? Because this feels really important, you know? And so just even acknowledging it, because the truth is, he might not even be emotionally connected to what he's feeling. He's just like, I just feel bad. I feel tired. I don't want to talk about what happened at school, and I don't want to process anything. I'm just freaking exhausted, right? And so if that's the case, just say that you see it. I see it. I can tell you're really tired, but I do want to get back to this when you're feeling a little more connected.
Yeah, you know? I love that. I love that. And for older kids with CVI, adults with CVI, you know, there's lots of talk about anxiety that comes with having CVI, the emotions of, you know, having this disability.
Absolutely. And I think my guess is for a long time that maybe there wasn't space to really talk about that, because it felt in the same way that I'm trying to create conversations around how hard it is being a parent to a disabled person. I think disabled people are starting conversations around how hard it is to be disabled, right? And so we have to give space for our kids, especially if they're nearing adulthood, to in some ways really grieve some of the difficulties that they've had to experience. And we don't have to be, you know, over there saying, you know, there's so much to be grateful for, and, you know, but look, it could have been so much worse. And, you know, we're like all the toxic positivity stuff that is so good vibes only, right? Good vibes only. Like, we have to create space for bad vibes, and we have to create space for the fact that, like, yes, it makes sense that you are pissed off that you've had this experience. And I totally see that and feel that with you. And, you know, from there, I mean, validating only does so much, because you can validate, but I think there also has to be processing too. Like, what resources are we making available for our kids for them to process in a way that's productive, right? So if we notice our adult child is feeling a lot of anxiety and a lot of grief and maybe anger and acting out, like, can we really try and connect them to maybe a therapist who really understands, not just any old therapist off the street, but somebody who really understands maybe what it's like living with a disability. And particularly, you know, with CVI or any type of disability that can be similar. So I think, which is hard work. I know that's so much easier said than done, but yeah, I mean, just giving our children resources and validating and encouraging, and again, allowing space for the hard feelings.
Yeah. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a lot of questions about self-advocacy. How can we teach our kids that as they grow up, they will need to be their own advocate, to ask for access, to be able to set boundaries around knowing that they don't have to explain themselves to everyone? I see this a lot in the disability rights community now. Like, our kids have a right to privacy and agency.
Exactly.
How do we promote these skills?
I love this question so much. And both of these first two questions, just, I felt like you're the parents just hit a home run on these questions. It's just like, it's like, these are the questions we need to be asking, right? And I love it so much because behind both of these questions is like, am I doing what I need to do now to make sure that my kids are going to be okay later? Right? That's like what I'm hearing in these questions. And it's like, if that's not parenthood 101, that's what we're all.
Every parent.
Every parent is feeling that. So, and we just have the extra layer of having a disability on it. So I love this question so much. And my answer is going to be slightly similar to the first one, which is that the first thing that we do is we model it. We model it to them, meaning we respond to their boundaries at home. So, and I'm curious, I don't know, you can tell me, Rachel, like what some similar or what some common situations is, but I'm even thinking like, hey, can I help you get dressed right now? Right? Like a question like that. And your kid says, yeah, that's okay. Instead of being like, I'm gonna grab your leg and I'm gonna put it in this, like, I'm gonna ask for permission to do this before I do it. Right. And as parents, we don't always feel like we have time for that, but it is important because we're modeling consent, we're modeling boundaries in the home. Or do you want to wear your sweater today? Or do you want to wear, like, I've been doing this with my kids lately, because usually I just pick out their clothes and on with our life, because I'm in a hurry, but I'm trying to be like, okay, can you go in and pick out what shirt you want to wear tomorrow? Right. Trying to model them having a voice and trying to model them we start with simple things and then it increases. Right. And so it starts at home, modeling boundaries, asking for consent. And then also, I think, especially in this day and age of social media, we have to be mindful about what we're posting online. That's another thing, another simple boundary thing. Like, if your kid's old enough to recognize themselves on the internet, you might want to say, hey, I'm going to post this picture. Are you okay with it? Here's what it looks like. Here's what, what do you think about this? Yeah, mom, that's fine. No big deal. Or no, I really don't want you to post it. Okay, no problem. I'm not going to post it. Right. So these are little examples of ways that we're getting our child to start taking ownership over their own sense of self and what they're okay with and not okay with. So that's the first step. And then I would say they're watching you on it as well. So if you're talking to a teacher or a therapist or a doctor or whatever, and your kid's with you, like, what are you sharing? And are you turning towards your kids and say, do you mind if I tell the story about last week when your stomach, do you mind if I talk about that? Right. And then your kids, that's fine. Yeah, you can say that. Okay, I'm going to tell them. But if you want to tell them, it's okay. So you're, instead of just bulldozing our kids, right, we're turning towards them and we're actually getting their consent in the process and really just modeling to them, this is how you do it. And if you say, no, you don't want me to talk about that, I'm going to respect your boundary. So if kids are taught, if it's demonstrated that we respect their boundaries, they're more likely to go out in the world and set boundaries because it happened at home. Right. And so I just, especially with our kids with disabilities, we have to be teaching this because the world can be a very unsafe place. And we want to make sure that our kids know how to advocate. We want to make sure that they know how to say when something bad has happened and that they know that we're going to have their back in it. So, yeah, I think those are most of my thoughts. So it starts at home and then they take it to the real world. That's what I would say. And then with the privacy thing, really turning towards them, what do you like? What do you feel okay if I say this? Do you feel okay if I post this? Do you have any thoughts? You know what I mean? Just bringing them into the conversation.
Yeah.
So often with our kids, especially with more severe disabilities, it's just like, I'm telling his life story to this person over here, and I don't even know if he's listening.
Right.
It's like, how many times have we been in a therapy appointment, like let's say a PT or an OT session, and I'm talking to the therapist about him while he's sitting right there.
Right.
And I'm like, wait, he is the, like, this
Right.
is about him. Let's bring him into it
Right.
and say,
Yeah.
how did Asher do today? Asher, how did it go? What did you work on today? You know, I mean, he may not be able to explain it to me because
Right.
of his struggles, but also I know he's paying attention. And how terrible does it feel to be talked over for most of your life, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about all of our families of kids with complex communication needs, and but still, even setting up some type of exchange, where it's accessible,
Absolutely.
even if
And
it's
if
a tactile prompt, like can
absolutely.
I put on this pant leg, things like that. Yeah.
And if your child is nonverbal, maybe you turn towards them and you say, and you look at them and you say, hey, I'm going to tell the doctor about what happened last week. Okay. And like, our kids understand us more than we know in many cases. So
Right.
I think bringing them in on it is a win-win. So,
Yeah. I never even thought about the doctor's office. Oh
right.
my God. How many times have I been like, yeah, he threw up this time,
Of
and he's
course, of
right
course.
there.
And
Yeah.
maybe
Like, what is
like,
he
honey, how did you
internalizing?
feel? Is there anything? I've been doing that with Asher lately where I'm like, is there any, we had his IEP meeting last week and I'm like, Asher, do
Oh,
you have any questions
oh my
for,
gosh.
which he did. He was like, no, of course I don't
Why
know.
do I
Like,
have
I
to?
mean, he's not super verbal. And so he was just like, no, but I was like, I'm going to ask him so he feels included.
That's really great of you to do.
Yeah.
How you recovered from the IP meeting? Everything
I
okay?
mean, yeah, it's always
I know. Can I inject a question? What do you do right after an IEP meeting to take care
that's
of
a great
yourself?
question. What do I do? I mean, oh, this time I had to do this. I had to do like this like a photo thing for work. And so
Oh,
I was like totally glammed up, which was honest to God, so empowering.
at
Like
your
I
IEP
moved
meeting?
at the IEP meeting. I mean, like my hair was curly. I had like and I'm like not like I'm like a very natural like
Same.
sweatpants type of girl.
Right.
And I have to tell you, it felt very empowering going and being like, yes, I am. And I was
Okay.
just like, what are they gonna think of you? I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna be Beyonce for this IEP.
That is a really
That felt
good,
shockingly empowering. I'm not gonna
that's a
lie. I
really good
really,
strategy. I'm gonna
right?
wear my fancy blazer,
I'm telling you. Yeah, I had a
blows out my
blazer on.
hair. You got a blazer on too.
Yeah, the
I
only
love
blazer
that.
I was wearing. So
Okay.
I would say that's a nice route, guys. Go that way.
Okay. Amanda, you're really onto something. That should be one of your posts.
Right? Okay, good. Wear that blazer to the IEP.
um, Before we move off of self-advocacy, a question just popped up. We have an adult with different needs. Could you recommend a book to assist us in teaching our children how to advocate for themselves?
Oh, great
Oh,
idea. I'm gonna write that down and get
yeah.
back to you.
That's,
So yeah, why don't I let me look at my resources tonight and then I'll make a post
yeah,
in the
since you're
group.
in
Yeah,
Amanda's
I'll make
in
a
or
post
Susanna. Yeah.
in the Facebook group. I'll make
Yeah.
a post on that. And
Oh,
then if there's
that's
any other
amazing.
questions, you need to get back to me,
Yeah.
of course. Because
And
I
then
love
I know it's a great question. There was a CVI parent who wrote this great article on CVI Now about reading and audiobooks. And she also included a list of different texts that centralize individuals with disabilities. So I'll look at that list too as well.
love that.
Maybe that'd be a great post to get going. Yeah.
For
Okay.
sure.
Great question, because books are a really good tool. Even,
Yes.
some I feel like some animated shorts have come out recently about
Oh my gosh,
censoring.
yes. There's been so many good ones.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
cool.
Okay. So let's talk about all that comes with thinking about the future with our kids. For me personally, this is the one thing, not the one thing, but a big thing that keeps me up at night that I have anxiety about every single day. What is the future going to be like? And so let's first talk about how we can help our kids. How do we balance helping versus fostering independence in daily living for parents of older children becoming young adults? How do we facilitate and support, and also how to carefully push individuals who are maybe a bit less motivated, shall we say? I know this parent, she's great, especially with complex individuals who are nonverbal.
I am right there with you that this stresses me out more than anything. And I will say this much. I think for a lot of time, I mean, Asher's 13, almost 13, like I said. And I think for the first quite a few years, my mindset was like, I need to push him to be as independent as possible. And I need to, like, that's the goal. That's the right goal.
Right.
all of our kids are at such different levels of functioning. So I'm just speaking for myself, but then I was sort of like, you know what? I'm going to shift my goal, my personal goal, from independence to safety. I'm going to switch my goal from independence to safety, meaning like for me, the number one goal is not independence at this point. The number one goal has now turned into safety. So that means, and most kids with PWS, what Asher has, they do not live independently just because of the nature of the syndrome. And so I've sort of been planning my, ever since we knew about it, that he's probably going to live in a group home someday or with us, one or the other. But I kind of shifted my thinking from independence to safety because safety feels more achievable to me, whereas independence feels like this goal that's like so out of my control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just feels like all this pressure to like push and let go and like risk and stuff like that. And for his particular syndrome, those are just like it's not a good mix. Like he needs safety. And so much of the answer of this really depends on where your child's sort of like even level to be independent is and slash like dependence on you. So those are my first initial thoughts on it. And if it helps you to be like, I'm just going to shift my goal from independence to safety, then you're more thinking about like, how am I, because safety is independence. We're fostering both in a similar way. Like, right. Like I'm teaching you to how to put your seatbelt on or something like that. Like, yeah, that's safety, but it is also like, you have to be safe in order to live independent. So for me, it's just a little nuanced thing that's helped me think about it a little bit less. It feels less scary for some reason. But okay, so remind me of the rest of the question. Like, how do we facilitate and support, carefully push?
The balance between helping versus fostering independence in daily living, especially with complex individuals who are nonverbal.
This is such a good question. It really is. And I think it is so hard to answer because like there's just that battle involved. Like if your kid is capable but unwilling, like how much energy do you have? I guess that's what I would say is how much energy do you have to engage in this battle? And like, is it worth it? So, I mean, we're asking these questions. Every parent is asking these questions. Yeah. We just have more at stake because we feel like our kids' independence hinges on us being like a drill sergeant. And I mean, I just can't every day. I just like, there are days when Asher refuses to brush his teeth. And I'm just like,
same.
Like today is the day where I don't care. Like we're getting out the door. It doesn't matter, you know?
Right.
And so I think the answer to that, I don't have like a really super helpful answer to that because I think from day to day, you have to gauge like, what is my ability to engage in this? What is my ability to engage in this battle today?
Yeah.
And if you're like capable of it, I would say it's probably always a good thing to try calmly, to stick to your routine and, encourage your kid to do the thing and really foster independence. But if you're just depleted, then you gotta let go of that guilt and just be like, I don't have it in me today, so it's not worth it. That actually feels like my answer. I mean, I think it's like, what can you do today? Where you start there. And if you're capable, go for it. Go for the like, whether you're using negotiating, whether you're using some type of reward system. But if you're not up for the battle, then just don't do it. Because we're not miracle workers. We're humans,
Yeah. The phrase, you just got to let go of the guilt.
Which is right. If only.
I'm still learning how to do that.
I know. But really, I mean, there's times where I go to bed and I'm like, I didn't make Asher do his homework, his like silly, like 1 + 1 is 2 addition homework. And I'm just like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's okay. I didn't have it in me today. It is fine.
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely like, did I do enough for Henry? Did I do enough for him today?
Yeah. It's like, did he eat? Is he clean? Yes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Is he clean-ish? Yes.
Can you just give an example of prioritizing safety versus independence? Because I think that's a really great reframe.
Yeah. So I would think like, here's an example. So Asher, he rides the bus now, but there was a long period of time where I had to drop him off at school. And he wanted to walk. He wanted me to park and let him walk into the school. Independence. And I was like, Asher, I don't feel comfortable with that. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's a lot of moving parts, and he's good on his feet, but he's not great on his feet. And what if he decides to make a turn and go to 7-Eleven instead of school? Like, like there's so many factors at play here.
Right.
So he was really shooting for independence. Like he really, really wanted to be like everybody else and not have his mom walk him up to school. So, and I was like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to park illegally, like right in front of the school.
Nice.
And I'm going to let you out, and you're going to cross the cross street, and I'm going to let you go in the building. That's what we're going to do. So there was a part of me that was like, I should let him do this. Like he wants this, this is really cool. He's like 12, like I should really, and he wants this, I should let him. But in the back of my head, I was like, absolutely not. This is not worth it. And so I'm going to try and meet him in the middle in a way that still feels independent. He would open the door and be like, bye mom. He was like yelling so loud so everyone could see that, like, I'm getting dropped off, just so you guys know I'm walking in by myself. Okay, I'm cool. Like,
yeah, sure.
It was literally like 20 feet, but I'm like, okay, if so that's like a quick example that I can think of. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to let you go for it, but like, I'm going to give you a little bit so that you are very safe in this move too,
It's so, one more point, and then we'll move on to our next topic. But, with individual CVI, with Henry, for example, he's very close to me, right? Because he's on the blindness spectrum, right? He's like, our kids really rely on their trusted adult. And so part of, he uses a white cane. It's like, how do I build those skills for him to like want to walk away from me?
Does he want to or no? Does he want to or no?
It depends if it's like, if it's a motivating activity, but if he can't find me, because he can't see at a distance, he gets really freaked out and starts screaming. So
that is that is a whole other ballgame of like, he is actually physically dependent on you.
Right.
Navigate, right? And so I just have such empathy for that, because you are naturally wanting to give him some independence, and you want to see him succeed in the world so desperately, but it's just such big steps.
Yeah. I don't know, like, is he ever going to be able to cross the street by himself and we can't see? I don't know. We're just like, so, but yeah, that's, I love that safety and independence. It really is. Over and over, I'm realizing, for example, when you're in an IEP meeting, when you're advocating, like, you have to understand your priorities,
Yes.
And they're hard to figure out, but that's what's going to support the sustainability.
Exactly. And that's why
long
with all of these questions that everyone's asking, the first question or the first thing I would say is like, well, what's most important to you? Like what's most important to your kid? Like, let's start there, right? Yeah. Like, what is most important for your kid in terms of independence? Like, is it living alone someday? Yeah. Or is it, like, what is it? And then
is it something? Yeah.
And so that answer is going to be different for everyone. And also we can't be influenced by what we should think the right answer is. Right. Like, that's another thing too, is that it, like, just like with the independence thing with my son, like my mom, who is wonderful, but was always like, well, do you think he'll live alone? Like, do you think he'll, and then fill in whatever blank that she thought was like most important. And I'm just kind of like, at the end of the day, honest to God, at this point in my life, I do not care if he lives alone. Like, I want him to be safe and I want him to be happy. So if he's in a group home with a bunch of his buddies and he has like a little job and he's happy and safe and like thriving, I'm going to be beyond happy.
Happy, thriving.
Exactly.
I love my kid when he's happy and thriving.
That's what I'm saying. That's all I want. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So now let's talk about siblings. Yes. Are they going to be okay? So what do they endure? How can we help them cope? And what do we need to know about all the things with being a sibling of a complicated child?
Yes, such a good question. And so
gets me, I'm getting emotional. Okay.
Oh, the siblings, I know, I hear you. I feel the same way. I mean, there's been research done on siblings, and they are impacted by having a sibling with a disability. The common feelings are jealousy. They feel like they are sort of left in the dark a lot. They feel like their sibling gets all the attention, right? And so these are common themes that come up with siblings. None of these are surprising.
Right.
And then one thing that actually was a little surprising that I hadn't really thought about as much is that they feel like they don't have all the information. They feel like they don't know what's going on with their sibling.
Oh, wow.
So they're worried about them, which to me was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. But
Yeah.
it's true. I don't come home and like update my other kids on Asher's condition or
Right.
what's going on, but they know something, they know something's different, right? And so okay, so that's generally, yes, research does show that yes, the kids are impacted. It's not all bad, but there are things as parents that we need to be mindful of. And the first one is going back to sort of what I said earlier about modeling that all emotions are allowed. Along the same lines is our non-disabled kids are often feeling like they don't want to add to our burden. So
Yeah.
meaning like, I see that mom is so stressed out. And if I got in trouble at school, the last thing I'm going to do is come home and tell her because she's so stressed out about Asher all the time. So I'm just going to deal with it on my own and not. So they learn to become what's called the well child,
Yeah.
which means I have no needs. Don't worry, I'm completely fine. Rachel, I see you having, I just want to know what you're thinking
me.
right
Just keep talking. Don't worry about me. Just keep talking.
So, right. So they take on the role in the family that's called the well child, meaning that like, I'm good. Don't worry. No, I'm good. I'm funny. Like they're often funny, right? They're like the class clown. They're silly, but inside there's so much going on. They're just trying to protect us because they see that we're really struggling with our child with disability. So,
Yeah.
so all those things that I said before about modeling healthy emotions and modeling healthy communication, we need to be doing that with our non-disabled child too. So they walk in the door. Hey, same thing. You're looking down, you're looking sad today. Can you tell me what went on? And just always like, I struggle with this so much. My middle son, who I love so much. I don't know if he just got home from school, but he is like obsessed with, Minecraft. He's almost 10. So he could go on and on and on and on. Oh, blah, 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 Minecraft. And I'm just like, please shut up. Like, but I've been trying so hard lately to be like, I want to hear about it. Like, tell me about it, because Asher gets so much of our attention. And so Asher has apraxia of speech. His speech is very difficult. So when he's talking, I'm just like,
yeah.
And so
You're like, right.
yeah, but when the other ones are talking, I'm just like, when is this going to end? And so now I'm mindful of that message that I'm sending. So I've been trying lately when my other boys talk to me, put my phone down and like, oh my gosh, tell me about Minecraft. That sounds so fun. Well, so, but just what message are we sending to our non-disabled kids about our availability, about my level to take on more burden, about chaos? Like, I mean, I know I've said, if one more thing goes wrong, I'm gonna blow up here in a minute, right? And I'm sure he's over there thinking like, yeah, Asher causes so much pain, so much stuff. Like
for me,
I just have to. And these kids, I'm not joking. My therapy practice is like built up of adults who were these kids in some ways, not necessarily with disability, but with something. So these are the kids that learn to internalize their problems. These are the kids that are in marriages where they can't ask for what they need from their partner. These are the type of adults that can't work towards a promotion at work because they don't know how to advocate for themselves, right? So we have to be making space for our non-disabled kids to have feelings, like, and to be mad about having a sibling with a disability, which is really freaking hard if you ask me, because I'm just like, do you think Asher, like I that's where I get shame and blame, and I need to just zip it, because it's like yeah, you're allowed to have those feelings. Like what my middle son said, it's embarrassing to go out in public with it. I was just like I wanted to just strike him, but I was like, I know, I understand, but he's part of our family. And you have times where you can go out without him, but he's part of our family and he belongs with us, so.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's
future. Yeah, no, that just hit me hard because that describes my daughter, who's 5, who comes over and comforts me when I'm upset. Like for real. I'm like, okay,
and
why are you in this position?
That's normal, but it's also okay for you to be like, I love it that you're comforting me, but you know what, mommy is okay. I have so many good friends and you don't even need to worry about me because I'm going to take care of myself. I want to know, how does it make you feel? How does it make you feel when you see this, right? So you can just turn it right back onto her and be like, you have the sweetest heart. Thank you for taking care of me, but I promise I really am okay.
That's great.
She's going to grow up to be probably a therapist.
She's pretty special.
What a sweetie. I mean, and that's the whole other side to this, right? Is that our kids are learning to deal with people who are different from them. And these are the kids that when they're in their classes, they probably get the best, like, oh, she's probably so kind to her peers. And I mean, so there's such a positive side to this too, that it makes our kids empathic, it makes them gentle. So I wouldn't change that for the world, to be honest. Like I love that. Yes.
Okay. All right. That was good. That was really good, Amanda. That's really helpful.
Good. I'm so glad.
Okay, so now we're going to really dive into these deep ones. Already 4:42, but we're gonna go.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So let's see. So let's really dive into all the emotions of grief and anxiety and guilt. So can we talk? I love this question.
I love this question too.
Let's talk about the magic tricks for making time for marriages. Seriously. So note, no respite, childcare, PCA right now. Thank you, pandemic. Parenting, medical coordinating, educational planning, recreational activities, ADLs, managing sensory needs, and working, managing your own health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's constant from wake to sleep. How do we nurture our relationships? I feel this so deeply.
I feel this so deeply too. And I'm just going to read you my bullet points on this. The first thing is a date night in, which is boring, but get the kids to bed, order in dinner, and this is all about scheduled time. The answer to this question is scheduling, in long story short.
Yeah.
Scheduled sex, I said, meaning like, hey, we have not had sex in a very long time. Let's do it tonight at 9:30 p.m. And if you don't come in here at 9:30, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's where we are on the romance level.
I'll get ready. Yeah. Gotta get ready.
Totally fine. That's totally fine. But it's like, I mean, look at the things listed in that this person said: parenting, medical coordinating, educational planning, recreate. I mean, this is 3 full-time jobs in and of itself. So if we are under the misconception that we're going to be having sex spontaneously, I promise you it's not happening. And if it is happening, I'm so proud of you out there. Keep it up. But scheduled sex, child swaps with friends, meaning like, hey, can you take my kids on Saturday and then I'm gonna take your kids on Sunday? So that's like free babysitting, right? Like
even for Asher?
Yeah, I would find a friend that I would like. Do you have are there any people in the school that could take Henry? Are there somebody who gets it, or would that be hard?
No, I'm just thinking about all of us. Yeah.
I know. I mean,
I just haven't even thought about it. You can tell, I know,
but that's why it's like and then you're thinking I'm paying them back later with watching their kids, so they're benefiting from this too, right?
Yeah.
Couples therapy, highly recommend couples therapy. And nowadays everything's virtual, so you can do virtual couples therapy. Just 1 hour a week or every other week where you're actually connecting. And then with couples, I always give the homework assignment of what there's this therapist called John Gottman. He's a famous marriage and family therapist. He recommends his couples do what he calls State of the Union. So once a week, you meet with your partner for let's say, 30 minutes max. And after the kids go to bed, and it's just a State of the Union, like, hey, what is going on in your week? How are you doing? What are you struggling with? You literally have a conversation. It's like what we used to do before we had kids. I don't know if any of you all remember that. I vaguely remember that, but it's like a 30-minute scheduled conversation every week where you just check in. And it's shockingly connecting.
I love that.
Yeah. And then the last thing on this that I wanted to note was just to remember that as couples, we grieve differently. So you might be somebody that needs to talk about your child's disability, about your struggles, about what you're dealing with, your grief, and your partner might be like, I don't want to talk about it. And so this is a huge problem. If you like this is huge. This is how marriages of kids fall apart, right? Of kids with disabilities, because we grieve differently. And so it doesn't mean that if you and your partner grieve differently, it's not a death sentence. It just means you have to learn what your partner needs, and your partner needs to learn what you need, and you guys need to do it. Like, if I need to talk about it, I need you to listen. And if you don't need to talk about it, I need to know that you're okay, and I need to not push it. Right. So I could talk about couples forever, because it's just, having a child with a disability is beyond life-changing for a marriage, like beyond. And we are in no way prepared for this level of responsibility. So
no. Yeah. And the resentment that comes out of, why aren't you grieving the way that I'm grieving? Once I realized I was doing that, it started to change things.
Yes. Why aren't you grieving the way I'm grieving? And also, why am I the one in charge of everything? For example,
all the things. Yeah, go ahead.
just that. Then, and learning to let some of that go. Like, you're going to go to this specialist appointment today. Right. I'm not going to. And you're going to come home and you're going to tell me about how it went. Like, we micromanage too. So like, let's blame our partners, but we need to blame ourselves too, because we're not letting go. So We're just, I mean, we're enabling this whole thing, right? So,
I see.
you know, so we got to let it go. Like, and that means I truly did tell to my husband, I said, I want you, you're going to take him to the appointment and then you make the follow-up appointment when you can go and then tell me about it. And I had to just be like, did you tell the doctor about this? No. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm letting it go because I'm letting it go because I trust you.
Yeah.
Love our child just as much as I do. And I don't need to be in charge of this.
Right.
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 Yeah.
Woo. Okay. We got some
Yeah.
work to do. Okay. Just some comments saying, yes, giving yourself grace is a big thing. Thanks for saying that. So,
Yeah.
okay. So now let's go on to the anxiety. How do I deal with the anxiety of trying to balance everything and balance family roles? I really like this question. What are ways I can maintain my personal identity while still feeling the needs of multiple family roles? How do I balance the needs of multiple children when these needs are at odds with each other or our own needs?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, I find myself inadvertently pushing my younger child to take on being the older helper while trying to take care of things. We kind of touched on this, but yes, I really like the question about maintaining personal identity also. Okay.
I love that question so much. And that is something that I feel so strongly about because I feel like so many of us, when we became parents to a child with a disability, it overtook our identity and we lost sight of like who we used to be. And it just, I just don't, if I could have one wish for all of us, it would be that we were able to connect with like what brings us joy and that we were able to find time for it and that we were able to not feel like we've lost ourselves, you know, because I think then comes in the resentment, then comes in the burnout and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and there is no easy answer for this, but I would say to just really think about what brings me joy. When am I my happiest? And when can I find moments to do that? I've recently started doing Soul Cycle, which is very faulty for anyone that's ever done it. And it is kind of a time commitment. Like it's like a 20-minute drive, it's a 45-minute class, and it's a 20-minute drive back. It's also so expensive. So, but I've been like, you know what? I am doing it. I am carving out time for this like once or twice a week. And it has like it's made my life so much better. And so Soul Cycle is not for everyone, but maybe your thing is like, I like to paint, or I like to listen to music or listen to a podcast. I would just say, and if your answer is, I don't know what brings me joy, then you definitely have some work to do, because that does mean that you have lost that spark. And so I want you to try to think like, when do I feel my happiness? And if it's like when I'm sleeping, like, okay, we got to dig deeper. Like, what brings you joy? Like, is it talking with a friend? Is it, you know, and can you find these little things in your day, just a couple times a week, to be like, I have time for myself. I'm claiming this back. I'm claiming back this time for myself.
Yeah. We're allowed to do that.
We are, and we have to. It makes us better parents, you know?
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I'm the same. I'm part of this gym community that's like
Yes.
a super crazy community, but
Yes.
everything.
It's life-changing because for 45 minutes, you can just forget it all.
Forget it. And you have to focus on yourself or else you're not going to be able to get through it.
Yes, it's so good.
Yeah. And also to, you know, like had a recent birthday, like a big milestone birthday. And it's like, I need to have more fun. Like we just need to have, I need to figure out how to have more fun.
That's right.
And what does that look like to me? I don't know what that looks like. I need to
right. Yes, love that. Love it. What about the anxiety question? I think and I know we're running out of time. And I'm fine on time if we want to go over a few minutes. I don't know what the rules are around that, but I also
no rules, but yeah,
okay.
I just want to be respectful of your time.
I mean, so good. And I love this. So I want to just touch on the anxiety thing. How do I deal with the anxiety of trying to balance everything? My first question would be, what are you currently doing to balance your anxiety, right? Like, what are you trying and how's it? And thinking like, what are the tools for anxiety in general? Therapy, medication, exercise, community support. I just want to put a plug in for a second on medication, because I know a lot of people are anti medication for ourselves. And I just want to say, if you are spending a lot of your time feeling really, really anxious, and this has been going on for a long time, it is okay to get on medication to manage your anxiety. So I just hope people hear that. We have been through so much trauma, starting from some of us before day one of our child's birth, right? And that trauma changes our brain and changes the way that we perceive threats in the world. So your brain might need a little extra help with managing anxiety. So I just always like to plant that when I'm talking to people, because medication is often something that when we're like, especially as parents of kids that are probably on a lot of medication, we're like, well, I don't want to deal with any more doctors. I don't want to deal with a specialist, but like, you're worth it. And it may very well help your anxiety.
We are worth it.
We're worth it.
Just
Totally.
maybe just say that out loud sometimes to
Yes.
yourself.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This question builds right off of your answer. I'm looking for the best advice to address our own adult emotions of grief and pressure and anxiety as they relate to our children's diagnosis and the circumstances that caused it. I find that 6+ years in, I'm still gripped with emotion when discussing the topic, and it derails open, rational conversation with the school and sometimes even my husband.
I mean, this question, I feel like so many people probably could have asked some form of this question, right? Like, basically, I am still really sad and really mad about what my child is dealing with. And it's
every
still
day.
upsetting.
Like every day, Amanda.
Every day, because we see our kids suffer. And it's not that we're like, I mean, I'm there, like, I am also proud of my son's disability in the sense that like, he is managing it. He is kicking ass. He's such a cool kid. You know what I mean? But also like watching him suffer and watching him have to deal with some of the stuff he has to deal with it is grief. It's devastating. I hate it. I hate this for him, you know? And so I think what I would say, and it's so simple. I mean, first of all, if you're not following my Instagram, you really should, because this is so much of what I talk about on my Instagram. That's not a plug for my Instagram. I promise. It really is just like,
I'll plug it. It's just,
it really is.
Being able to read your post. I'm like, oh my God, I feel so seen. So
means the world to me. And like this, just being honest about all the like little small details. I posted once of like something like, what was it? Other parents were like tightening their kids' soccer cleats. And I was like trying to get my son to take his first steps. Like, that's where I was in the world. And it was just like, wow, I am so different from every other friend I know that's raising kids, you know? And I think sometimes going back and thinking about those differences and naming that grief really does help us process it, because we're like, okay, yeah, it's there. I feel it. I mean, when I'm reading this, I'm gripped with emotion when discussing this and it derails me. That makes me think you probably need to be having more conversations about it, because it's right there. So when you give it space to breathe, it's like, finally I can breathe. And then you shove it right back down because it feels too overwhelming. So I would just encourage you to find a friend, somebody who gets it, a therapist, write about it. Like, just give yourself space to talk about it. And also we need to like totally dispel this myth that if we're upset, if we're sad about our child's disability, it means that we don't love them. That is a myth. That is not true. Right. You're allowed to grieve your child's diagnosis and still love them more than anything in the world. So I think that's just so important to put out there.
I just feel this, because like, how do am I going to think like this the rest of my life? Like, when is peace going to come? You know, it took me a while to be able to go to a playground and be okay. Oh my
gosh, totally.
Still, sometimes I'm like, I can't. They're all just like,
I mean, you are forever changed. You are, and that's the reality of it. And you will always feel sad about this. I don't think we'll ever reach a point where we're like, oh, I'm so glad that, you know, I can look back and really see how that was a good thing. I don't think I will never reach that point. I will never reach that point.
So you're saying the peace more is just like acceptance of like, I'm going to feel this way and I'm going to make room for it. I'm going to lean into it. And
I think that's what it looks like. I think it just looks like, ooh, on those days where I'm having a hard day, I'm going to give myself space to do it. Yeah. I'm going to feel it. And there's going to be a good day coming up too, you know, like, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. And it's not all bad. That's the reality.
And just another follow-up, just thinking also, like, is this still my fault? Like, is this my fault?
I just hear that all the time. And I
ask myself that still every day. And I know it's not good.
Not your fault. It's not your fault, because if you could go back and, I mean, it's not your fault. If you could go back and do anything differently, you would have, but we don't know what we don't know. And
we don't know what we don't know,
you know, and yeah, I mean, it's just, there has to be acceptance around the fact that it's like, if I could have done something differently, I would have. And that's all that matters, you
Right.
know, that's all that matters. And also like, I'm doing everything I can now. So when I'm in the present moment, I'm doing exactly what I need to, but
Yeah.
there does have to be this element of forgiving, whether it's ourselves or even like if a doctor made a mistake, like trying to be like, they didn't do it on purpose. Like you know, it is so complicated, but getting stuck in that blame game is not helpful for your joy. It's not helpful for your peace.
Not,
It's just not,
you're
you
right.
know, it's just not.
So we're going to stay on this trauma and anger theme. um,
Good one.
so the compounding drama, drama and trauma,
And trauma.
the anxiety that overwhelms in those like really triggering moments. You talked recently about health anxiety, which really spoke to me.
Yep.
IEPs, so many of our families are just in these disaster situations where the schools and the IEP teams just don't get our kids, don't want to teach our kids. So how can we empower ourselves, like to find that sustainability and acceptance? How do we empower our kids to do the same?
Yep. So good. And so, I mean, the first thing I would say is coming to a realization and acknowledging what are the traumatic thing, like what is it that triggers you, right? So and why, like what is it and why? That's my first question. Is I did a post once, and this is still so true. Anytime I go to the children's hospital for my son and use the hand soap, it brings back all the trauma from the NICU. Like I can barely. It's just so upsetting for me still to this day. Yeah, and so I've told myself, as much as I can, I'm gonna try not to wash my hands at the hospital, like because it's so upsetting. Or I'm gonna bring some like Bath and Body Works hand sanitizer or something, you know, like something that smells good. But like, so can you identify what is it that's upsetting to you, and then trace it back to why? That's the first step, right? Because then we're recognizing the trauma and we're developing some understanding around where it's coming from. Then we just simply have to have compassion for ourselves. Like, of course I feel anxiety when I smell that. Of course that like gets me going, you know, because man, what a freaking terrible time for me. And so from there, then it's thinking, how can I take care of myself in the moment? What do I need in the moment then? So if IEPs are really challenging, like, what do you need in the moment? Have you prepared? Have you read the IEP in advance and made the notes where you want to? Is your partner with you or a friend? You know, are you calm? Did you get a good night's sleep before? Have you eaten what you needed to eat? Just really like babying yourself in a very gentle way to be like, this is hard. I don't need to be hard on myself. I'm going to go in and I'm going to try and be as loving and gracious to myself as I can. And then afterwards, like, what is my reward? Like, you know, like what is coming after that? What is coming after this IEP that I know I can look forward to? I'm gonna go get a burger, or I'm going to take the morning off work and go for a walk. Like, you know, what is my reward and how am I caring for myself after this, so that if I'm heightened, I know that I don't have to jump right back into life. I can have like 2 hours to just catch my breath. And I mean, I know a lot of people out there are probably thinking like, that's so ideal. Like, I wish that I could, you know, maybe that feels impossible to be like, how can I ever take 2 hours? And if that's the case, then I would say like, okay, look, pack a lunch, or, you know, how can you care for yourself after this event in a way that like soothes you? We have to soothe ourselves in the same way that we would soothe our baby after they got a shot, right? Like, how can we take care of ourselves as well? And then also, I know so much of us have medical anxiety, and that podcast, Madeline did such an amazing job with it. And so I highly recommend that, medical anxiety.
What's the podcast called?
It's called,
is it The Rare
Life?
The Rare Life. Okay.
I think it's called The Rare Life. And I talk a lot about medical anxiety because I have really intense medical anxiety that I've had to work through, and I'm still working through. So I feel you all on that if you have it too. But trauma, I mean, I could talk about trauma forever, and we just so much compassion towards all of us in that area.
Yeah, I know. I could talk about that too, you know, and it's so fascinating that some of the surprising triggers, you know, and it's like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel so awful? Right. You know, with Henry, there's something called like CVI meltdowns, where it's just the environment is too overwhelming and it's just, the behavior goes crazy. And so for Henry, we're in like CVS, and it just, he was thrashing, like the whole display on the bottom thing was down. And I just screamed, I'm like, somebody help me.
Yes.
I didn't know. It was just all of the other meltdowns that I dealt with. And I just like snapped, and I was shaking, and I didn't, and it was just, like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. But,
Oh,
and it's like, and I feel like these moments happen, or, so many of our families deal with ongoing seizures, right? If I had one wish in the world, it'd be good to get rid of seizures.
I would
Yes.
definitely share that wish with you. It's so
And
scary.
it's just people are in and out of hospitals. So
Mm.
I like just thinking about like, what can you do for
Mhm.
yourself? If
Mhm.
it's watching some stupid TV under the blankets with the lights off,
Yes. And lately I've been
whatever.
like, when I feel really activated and like I've been able to learn more about like what my physical symptoms are. So like if my heart's beating fast or I'm breathing shallow and I'm like really anxious,
Yeah, when you
I'm
get hijacked.
yeah, exactly. So I'm really learning to just be like, that's a cue when my heart's
Okay.
beating fast. That's a mental cue for me to like slow down my breathing and maybe go like sit down for 3 minutes if I can. Because
Okay.
in order for like our brains are like threat, 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 something terrible is about to happen. Even if it's not, our brains are so hyper wired at this point in our parenting journeys to be like over
Mhm.
responsive because there's
Mhm.
been so many traumas in our life. So our brains are like,
Right.
go to 0 to 60 when it needs to be like 0 to 20, you know? So you have to be doing the work to calm your body down because your brain's not really helping you out. For us, people that have been through trauma like this, right?
Yeah. But that takes work. That takes a
It
lot of
takes
work.
work, it takes self-awareness, it takes
Okay.
like an awareness of what you're feeling in your body. And when we're feeling trauma, we're outside of our body often.
Yeah.
Like we're in the future thinking worst case scenario, where we need to be like, I'm in my room right now and it's safe. For me, this is me. Yes, my son has a fever, but that doesn't mean that he's gonna have to go to the hospital. I can catch my breath. And if he does have to go to the hospital, I know how to get there. And we are in a great city with good doctors. So I'm going to just calm myself down right now and take a minute. Right.
That's helpful. That's
I'm not good at it, but that's where I am. I'm trying,
okay.
you
Okay.
know?
Um, one person gave the suggestion of how to balance life is just cutting down on hours at work. If you have to, even
Absolutely.
just like I'm feeling, when it comes to work, like it's okay to take an afternoon if you need to, right? This is the long game here.
Absolutely.
So it's just, yeah,
100% take the day. If you
yeah,
can, if you have the hours, take it and go and like, yeah, like we are in a marathon. So if you need to take a minute to like
ultra.
catch your, yeah, we're in an all marathon.
Yeah,
You need to take a minute to catch your breath so that you can pick your kids up from school and like be a decent human, then that is what you definitely
right,
should
right.
definitely.
Can I ask you one more question before we
Mm-hmm.
follow up? What are you most hopeful for?
Honestly, discussions like this make me feel so hopeful because I even
Um,
feel like when Asher was a baby, people were not talking about the hard
no,
stuff. They
right,
just weren't.
right.
They just weren't. Like it was like I felt so much pressure to. I always say like wear the orange ribbon. That's like the orange ribbon for Prader-Willi syndrome. Like I'm a PWS mom, and it's like I don't always want to wear the ribbon. I just don't like, ever. Most of the time, I just don't want to wear the ribbon. So giving myself permission to like just not wear the ribbon and just be like, it is a really bad, like we are really struggling, and just own it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna be okay. But I'm feeling very down today about all of this. And I just just saying that for me is so freeing. Just saying that and then like going and like laying next to Asher in bed and just be like, man, this sucks,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Like, wow, that was quite a day. So I think what gives me hope is just
Oh,
having these conversations and just giving people permission to talk about it, because I think the more we talk about it, the less alone we feel
yep.
and the more supported we feel and the more that we're just like, it's hard, but it's also good. Like we can free it up to look at the good stuff too. So, but if those emotions are all right there and we're never talking about them, it's just like we're all just internalizing it for the rest of our lives. And life is too short for that.
It's for
So
sure.
honestly, that's what gives me hope is that we're having these conversations.
I agree. Same for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much for watching this event brought to you by CVI Now here at Perkins School for the Blind. Go to cvinow.org to learn more.